Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, and joining us today is another the show. Now, my guest today is a romance author who specializes in stories that feel as warm and true as a familiar hug. Her novels explore the beautiful, messy realities of finding lasting love, often blending heartwarming humor with deep emotional stakes. Born in Derby, UK, she draws significant inspiration from her own life, the small, sweet moments, the unexpected challenges, and the undeniable bond she shares with her loved ones. When the writing day is done, you can find her curled up on the sofa with her husband, usually with a cup of tea in hand, meticulously analyzing the tropes and meet cutes in her favorite evening rom-coms. And it's during these cozy movie nights that many of her story ideas are first sparked. So, without further ado, viewers and listeners, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, romance author Michelle Wilson. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome, Michelle. So glad to have you here. Now, before we begin the interview, as a little icebreaker question, what's a random fact about you that not a lot of people know?
Oh, there's many random facts, but probably one of the best ones is I am dyslexic. So writing is almost always a challenge, but it just goes to show no matter what the challenge is, there's always an outcome.
Nice. All right. Now, as regards to your books, how many books do you have out, and what's your most recent publication for people to check out?
So there's six out now. They're all novellas. So because I know how busy life can get, so it's just a lot easier to have the shorter books, but with a lot of context in there. My
Hmm.
latest one is Millie's Descent. That is kind of a prequel slash sequel of my very first book, which was Mending the Broken Heart. And it's about Millie on how she actually got to that point of being the person that she is in Mending a Broken Heart. So
Ah,
just delving a little bit deeper into her psyche, shall we say.
okay, okay. So before we dive into the world of your stories, Michelle, let's talk a little bit more about you as the author. So, what really put you on this path to becoming an author, a storyteller? Do you have a definitive aha moment or several aha moments in your career as an author?
Hmm. Probably several. It's been going on for years. When I was in my teens, I used to do write comic books. I can't draw for toffee, but I did the comic books, and they were really good. I don't know if anybody remembers like these two. Certainly was the UK. I'm not sure about America, but there was like two cartoon film reel things that come up in between the films, and I was
Oh, the
drawing them.
shorts.
Yeah, so they were. I thought, oh, they're really cute, and I tried that and tried to get a story behind them and do that, and then I also wrote a story about a girl going to theatre school because at the time I did start theatre, and it was just little bits. But at the time, there wasn't enough technology to help with someone who
Mm,
does have, dyslexia. So, that's actually it's nowadays that it's come through. I'm like, okay, I can actually be me and start writing what I want. So yeah.
nice. That's amazing, Michelle. That is amazing. So now let's go into the construction of your books. We're actually going to start with the first book that you wrote in this series of yours. So let's start at the very beginning. So when you were planning this book, before you even had an idea that you wanted to make it into a series, ultimately, how did the idea of it come about?
Well, it was me just writing down all my failed love life, my failed dates, how bad the first ones were going, and I'd named it Love Online because I met a lot of people through dating sites and things like that, and it just
Mm,
kind of just got brush to one side, thinking, okay, I've got that off my chest, back and go. And yeah, it never saw the light of day.
Hmm, okay. Now, when your first book was still in the process of being published, let's say in the early draft phases, did you have an outline of what you wanted to tell, or would you consider yourself a more spontaneous writer?
Very much a spontaneous writer. I mean, I've got an idea, in the sense that I can't think of the initial one myself. So I go onto Google and type romance ideas, and I get one sentence, and I spark the story from one sentence.
Mm,
Now, it
okay.
doesn't necessarily mean that it stays as that one sentence, but it just helps me with the first couple of chapters, and then it's like, right, boom, I can do this, and this with it.
Absolutely. Very, very true. That's happened with me with my own writing. It's just one line inspiration, and I just build upon that. Now, as you mentioned earlier in the interview, you have 6 books already out for this series. Now, looking back on your career as a writer with the recent publication of your 6th book, what really surprised you about the author's journey?
Oh, um, my first book, I'd admit, it was a mess when it first started. It really was. I have had so many rewrites on it; it's unbelievable. But as I've gone on, the rewrites process has got less.
Mm,
It's if I'm been rewriting it, it's been more context I've been putting in, and I know what I want from it, and I've got a kind of more of a vision, and yeah, just working it from that respect.
awesome. Very, very nice. Very, very nice, Michelle. And now I have a fan question, and there's going to be a few fan questions sprinkled throughout the interview. One fan question I would like to ask you is, out of your 6 books, who has probably been your favorite character to write and the most challenging? And bonus, do you have a favorite scene that you've written throughout your series?
Ooh. Um, yeah, if I go with, I'm going to go with Isabel. In Mending a Broken Heart, she is very much, she's me, because a lot of the stories in there are from me. Obviously, artistic license with it, expanding and minimizing on things, but because she just kind of wrote herself, she taught me a lot about things, so I'm really drawn to her a lot more. Challenging, likewise, has kind of got into Millie. um Millie is the I rule the world kind of approach. I want to
Mm.
be friends with people. I want to go do this, but I have a very evil streak. And excuse the phrase, but I had to really dig down for my inner bitch. I say, I'm sorry, everyone, but that is straight to the point.
Oh, you're completely fine. If like a curse word slips from describing a character or a scene, you're completely fine. Trust me, I've had much worse on the show, so you're good.
But yeah, because she's so challenging, um, Millie got her own book because I had one of my close friends turn around to me and says, well, I don't think she's had the comeuppance that she needs. And then I took that round going, yeah, but why is she like that? Why has she got to that point?
Mm.
So that's what I need to sort of dig down and then double it over, in the sense that I was mirroring scenes from Mending a Broken Heart, trying to literally do it from a different perspective. And that was a challenge. That really was a challenge. But if I look at a favourite scene, it's probably not even going to be on those 2 books. My favourite scene is from Timeless Pages, and
Okay.
that is around World War I and the struggles the family goes with, and the moment that they go off to war. I'm thinking, considering I've never lived that, the fact that everything I've read and in my heart and everything, it just it felt like you were there. Even me, even though I was writing it, I felt like I was going along with the journey with them.
Nice. Okay. Now, kind of a more personal question, Michelle. Looking back again on your series thus far and your own personal journey as an author, ultimately, what has been the goal you set out with these series of books, beginning with your first one, and ultimately the promise you're making not just to yourself as the author, but to your prospective readers?
Make sure that they come off that book with a smile on their face, being able to give them a maybe a few minutes afterwards thoughtful process of feeling like, okay, do I know somebody like that in my life? Is this more true? I always like to write like I'm talking to my best friend. I would like to make sure that I am, you know, straight to the point, going, oh, this happened, and make you feel like it's more memorable. And
Mm,
that's what I always try to go with. And that's another reason why it's the novellas and not full on novels, because you're not going to sit there for hours talking to your best friend over everything. You want to cram it all in and make sure that it's there in the heart.
absolutely. Very true. Very, very true. And kind of another personal question. When you began this journey of yours, I know that for many authors, there's a hesitancy to let people know exactly that we are authors. I've talked to a lot of people on the show who have said that they've told their family outright, or they've told their family when their first book was released, when they knew that they could make some kind of living off of it. For you, Michelle, when did you tell your friends and family? And overall, what has been the reaction like?
Um, as soon as I released the first book, I told them, I said, look, I did it. And they was like, okay, that's great. And they read it and they do what every family did and they pulled it apart. Quite rightly, because it's made it an even better book with rewrites and everything else going through it. And a little disheartening at first, but it's made me a better author. Um, my close friends, they were all up for it. They loved it. But yeah, it's been a journey. That's probably the best way of putting it. I've not been out there as long, and I want to make sure that everybody is aware of me as much as possible.
Absolutely. Very true. I think that's probably one of the major goals for us authors is the exposure, is trying to get our name out there. Because I'm sure you'll definitely agree, Michelle, that as we'll touch on later, while it's never been more easy to be published because there are so many outlets and platforms and publication houses, it's never been more difficult to market ourselves as authors. That is probably the most daunting thing. And I think that also gets tied in with the next set of questions, which is, of course, dealing with imposter syndrome and writer's block. As you mentioned earlier, a lot of the stories are based upon your own personal stories. But I imagine even with that as a basis, there are probably some days, or there probably were some days, where trying to create a story entirely original had some moments where it's like, okay, I'm getting stuck. What do I do here? Or at the very least, as you mentioned, these stories are novellas. They're very shorter than traditional novels. That's also a commitment as well. It's like, okay, I'm committing myself to write, short stories, as opposed to, I imagine, some people, some reviewers and readers may have asked for or suggested longer novels in the future. So I'm very curious, Michelle, for you as an author, how have you handled those two major things, writer's block and, of course, the dreaded imposter syndrome? Because every author encounters it one way or another.
Yeah, I second guess myself so many times. I've got a fantastic person that edits my book, and she's basically my conscience. She tells me, no, it's good, it's fine, you're all right. And every couple of chapters, she's like, okay, well, we need to do this, and we need to try and do this. It's like, right, okay, right, back to the drawing board. I need to sort of expand on this. And do you think I need me emotions a bit more, and really, really pull from people's own personal, so then I can pull it from them. It's, I mean, it's difficult because marketing is a challenge, no matter whether it's authoring, whether it's general business. It's a fickle world, and it's really difficult to try and pin everything down. But it's a good job I enjoy doing my posts, because I could be here forever. But yeah, that how I get over it in terms of writer's block and things like that is I just stopped doing it. For that moment, I stopped doing it. I go and play a game. I go and watch TV, listen to music, and that may keep me away from the laptop for a few hours, or days at times, because I'm just like, I haven't got a clue what to pop down. But eventually, I come back. I put a few sentences in, and like, before I know it, 3 or 4 chapters down. Not chapters, no, I'm expanding on that. 3 or 4 paragraphs down, and I'm feeling a lot better about it, and I can then come back to it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Very, very true, Michelle. Very true. Now we get into the reflective segment of the interview. And the first little icebreaker question that I would like to ask you is, what does it mean to be an author in the digital age? And I'll give some reasons behind this question. I'm sure you'll definitely agree that as authors, social media is a must-have tool to, again, market ourselves as authors. It's a great place to connect. It's a great place to get readership, viewers, join engagement groups, and stuff like that. But being authors in the digital age is very taxing and draining. It's sometimes emotionally scarring as well, because social media is a double-edged sword. And it's crazy to think of how far, small press authors and indie authors have, come in the last 20 years. Before the rise of social media, trad authors were the dominant force in the publishing industry. And yes, you still had indie and small press, but they were seen as a lesser form of publication. You can't say that now. You absolutely cannot say that now, because indie authors, hybrid authors, small press authors have reached a new forefront. Yes, trad is still the dominant force, but indies and the other forms of publications are on equal footing, I would argue. But for the individual authors within those groups, it's not easy. It's a lot. It's absolutely daunting. So I'm very curious, Michelle, with that being said, what has still disciplined you to stay true to your goals as an author?
Simple sentence. I'm very stubborn. If I set my mind to something, I'm going down that route. No matter how many times it knocks me down, if I've got an idea that something's going to work, I will do it. I mean, I started out obviously on my own, but I found so many other authors out there, that I've seen them progress, and I'm cheering them on because they are doing so well. And I've got a feeling they've all got the very much same mentality, because you have to. In this day and age, you've got to be very stubborn with yourself, your process, the end goal is got to be kind of still up there and before you even start.
100%. Very, very true. And here's another fan question that's actually from the past. And this question asks, in your opinion, Michelle, do you believe that traditional publishing has some form of gatekeeping that prevents indie authors from getting their stories out to a much larger audience?
In some respects, yes. Some respects, no.
Okay.
So traditional has always got a place in the market, and I would love to be able to get myself, in that position. but I'm still enjoying, and I think I will always enjoy the journey of self-publishing because it's you that's getting it out there. No, in the sense that they're not getting things out as quick as obviously you'd like. As an author, stuff is there, things of, your writing's good, your editing's all sorted, you're ready for it, and you just want to get it out, but you're delayed a little when it comes to traditional, because obviously they want to put their stamp on it, quite rightly. That's what they're in the business for. Excuse me. But self-publishing is very immediate, and traditional just doesn't have that feel, if that made any sense whatsoever.
Yes, you're absolutely hit the nail on the head, Michelle, 100%. And this kind of goes into the next question, which I'd like to hear your thoughts on, of whether or not we are in a golden age or an iron age. And I'll give some more reasons for this question. Now, I began my journey as an author around 2020, the height of the pandemic. And, I was still in graduate school. I needed to keep busy, so I just began writing. And coincidentally, around that time, I began getting my YouTube channel ready. And as I began interviewing a lot of authors, especially last year, I learned that a majority of authors began their writing careers during the pandemic, the quarantine years. And once things started, getting easier, the restrictions started loosening up, the market was flooded. You had so many new books, so many new voices in the industry, which is good. But as things began to settle, you began to see a shift between those that are passionate about the industry and those that simply wrote just to write something. And what was originally a golden age of creativity, we've now shifted into an iron age, because now we have an idea of who's who in the industry. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether or not you agree with this debate.
I think we're kind of slap bang in the middle of it all.
Okay.
Because we are always developing, we're always moving forward. Being in an age where technology is taking over, we are very much expanding so much, and we'll never stay just one, linear moment. It will always be, okay, so what new things can we do? Nothing will ever settle, not properly. And who knows, self-publish might take over the traditional sense, and people might actually start liking AI a little bit more than what they do at the moment, because it's got so many pluses and people forget how much plus it does have for it. But that's another argument for another day.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we are sort of progressing.
Yes. And on that topic of AI, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, especially generative AI. I talked to a lot of authors on the show, a lot of artists and narrators about AI. And as much as we hate to say it, AI is in everything now. It's in spell check, it's in proofread. We can't get rid of it. So AI is always going to be in everything. But I think what a lot of people can agree on is generative AI has no place in creativity whatsoever. Now, the one counter argument I would say, and this is actually from a friend, a colleague of mine, who said you could use generative AI to help brainstorm, to at least get an idea. But the whole writing thing has to be on you. It has to be on you. And as I've talked with a lot of guests on the show, generative AI creates a false sense of creativity.
Yeah.
And it mass produces it on a large scale. And to quote a previous guest from last year, having AI write your book is like asking an alcoholic to write the story for you. It's going to be messy. It's not going to make sense. And you're going to end up being the editor instead of the writer, which is ultimately true. So, Michelle, I would like to hear your thoughts on the rise of generative AI in the publishing industry, and whether or not this is just a passing fad or if left unchecked could be the norm.
I think it's right that it is very much a case of it's it should only be used for ideas. I mean, when it comes, I mean, I said earlier about the fact that I like doing my posts. The ideas for the posts, on the other hand, don't come that easily. So I ask AI for an idea. I load my book, it tells me an idea, I create it. Writing is purely me. Spell check and grammar and things like Grammarly help me with restructuring and spelling and everything with that. But when it comes to actually writing the whole book, it will make no sense whatsoever. It will, it takes over the fact that there are people out there that have got minds that know how to put the information down. It takes longer than others. Some take quicker than others. It's just how it is. But if you know how to use AI correctly, it can be your best friend. You don't have to be afraid of it. It's just there's too many people out there that are using it for the wrong reasons that it's got a bad rep.
100%. Absolutely agree. And now that kind of leads perfectly into the business side of being an author. And as a little icebreaker for this portion of the interview, going back to again, posts and trying to market ourselves, looking back on again your journey as an author in terms of marketing your book, what really surprised you about that aspect of the journey? And with the newest release, or I should say the recent release of your book, is there anything you would have done differently?
How many people try and sell you something? I was not expecting that. It was eye-opening, and a lot of people know how to be graceful over it. A lot of people don't. That's just how it is. It's human nature. What I do differently is going to be down to something simple. I would have got more things down in writing before I start it. Now, it's quite ironic writing, but I put more ideas down. I'd promote my book a lot more. I'd make sure that people more aware of it than when it first started. And I've learnt so much, both in plus and minus states.
Yes. Very, very true, Michelle. And now we get to probably one of the most challenging questions is actually a two-parter, understanding our audience and balancing our authenticity with the genres we write in. So I'll start with the first part. As authors, finding our audience and readership is never easy. It's always a trial and error with every book we put out. But sometimes we already have the idea in our heads of who we want to write to. And it's normally people like us who enjoy these stories. So when it came to writing your books, Michelle, how well did you understand your audience?
If I'm honest, not at all. That's one of the things another reason why I've really wished that I could go back and do that. I knew I wanted to write romance. I knew that I wanted, because it's what gives everybody that feel goods across the way. But I also knew that I didn't know anything in that respect. But now I know a lot more because I'm across all platforms. I can see what people are looking for, the kind of tropes that they want, the kind of vibe that they feel. And I kind of subconsciously, I think, work my books around that as well.
Fascinating. And going to the next question of authenticity, this is one thing I don't think a lot of authors really take into consideration, which is for each genre of fiction, there's a certain expectation of how a story is supposed to go. Now, romance is no exception. In fact, romance has many subgenres that has its own share of, style of writing and what people expect, tropes, and so forth. But for us as authors, we shouldn't be pigeonholed into writing in that style or trying to copy another author style because that's not true to who we are. We're not trying to be like those people. We're trying to be us. But it's this constant teeter tottering act that we find ourselves in every day. So,
Yeah.
Michelle, I would like to hear your thoughts on how you've been able to balance your authenticity in writing while also being aware of the genre that you're writing in being romance.
Yeah, since a teenager, I have been reading Jane Green books, and Mr. Maybe was one of the ones that I was focused on so much as a child, and I think I've kind of grown up with that kind of style of writing. But it's very, it talks to you rather than at you. It's not lovey dovey. It's straight to the point. Of the this is real life.
Right.
People are going to act differently. They're not going to be the oh my god this happens and oh my god swoon kind of thing. It is all going to be very much talk to you like a human, and that's how I want my style of writing to be. I know I said it kind of briefly at the briefly at the beginning a few times throughout, but I want to talk like I'm speaking to my best friend. And that particular book, that spoke to me like a best friend. And I think subconsciously that's been in the back of my mind. But focusing on, how a certain book should be, if you've got a base idea, it can be anything throughout. Because as long as you have that feel in the book, someone will dig into that.
Awesome. Awesome, Michelle. And we're almost nearing the end of this amazing author interview. We have a few minutes left. So now we're going to go into the rapid fire questions. So here's the first one. As an author, what is probably the most difficult sense of the five senses to write in storytelling?
Here.
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't gotten that one. I've usually gotten touch or smell.
Yeah, here, because trying to explain, what's out there without putting a whole list of the birds are chirping, the bin lorries are going past, this, that, and the other. It could go so long. The reader wants to feel the story rather than read it. In some respects,
Mm-hmm.
it's so yeah. That's something that I'm working on. So anybody
Nice.
that's reading my books, apologies, I am working on that, but that's mine.
Absolutely. Next question. What makes a story truly gripping? The atmosphere or the tone?
Depends on the book. But it is probably the atmosphere. If you've got, the idea of the atmosphere in your head from what's being said, the tone pretty much speaks for itself. Because you automatically have an idea of what somebody could be feeling at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right. Here's probably the most common question that a lot of people have been asking. Most underrated and overrated trope in fiction.
That is probably, it might be common, but it's very, very much a challenging one because there's so many different paths it could go down with it. But underrated, I think, again, this is probably me being a bit biased. Second chance novels. People don't do second chances. It's very much find the person, that's it, you're with them. Overrated. I think it might be um the sci-fi one. I've written some time travel books, in terms of an element of a person go back in time, that kind of thing. But the whole book being, in sci-fi, no, because personally, And yes, there are so many fantastic books out there for it. Personally, I want some depth in it.
Mm,
But that's what I like personally anyway.
fair enough. Fair enough. Now, next question. As a reader, what do you enjoy more, themes or tropes?
Tropes. Yeah. I am a sucker for the enemies to friends, the underdog, that kind of side of things.
Awesome. All right. All right. Next one. Which is more difficult for an author to do towards the end of the story? Knowing when to stop writing or coming to the conclusion that the story is finished? And by story, I mean that particular story they're working on.
Yeah. Knowing when to come to an end. Because you could keep so easily keep going and going and going, but it would just feel like it's there for the sake of being there, which is probably another reason why I'm
Absolutely.
novella more than I am novel.
Absolutely. Very true. Very, very true. Next one. This guy's a fun question. Now, of the characters in your series of books, if they had a theme song attached to them, what would their theme song be? And we'll look at the top 3 characters throughout your book series.
Okay. So probably actually I don't know. I've never even considered that side of things. Well, I probably have at some point, but I've never really got to that actually pin anything down.
Okay, that's fair. Well, how about this? What theme song would best describe the first 3 books in your series?
Okay. So Mending a Broken Heart probably would be the Friends theme tune.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It just has very much of the words that focuses on it. Only love, only look can change time. It's kind of around mental health, that side of things. So I'm stereotyping here, but any one of James Blunt's songs, you could pick one and it would be there. The third one was Letters to the Heart, about modern day, getting the wrong email sent, what's in work, and finding that person. And it's probably Natasha Bedingfield. I can't get the words out with that one. She's got a couple out that kind of focusing on it, because it doesn't just focus on the it focuses on the background stuff. So it does do the lovey-dovey, but yeah, I can't.
That's fair. That is fair, Michelle. And now we arrive at the final question of this amazing author interview. And here is the question. Now, we talked about a lot of things in this interview, from your journey as an author, what you've learned about being an author, how you developed your books, the inspiration behind them, what you learned about marketing, and so forth. So, at the end of the day, what do you want people to take away from your books?
Depending on which book they pick from it, because they're all different, in the sense of what all know their own meanings behind them. I want them to have that warm feeling of knowing that kind of they're not on their own. There is other people out there. Yeah, okay, this person's in a book, but I write for like real people. So there are other people in the exact same boat, the exact same feel, and just to make them feel like they're part of something.
Beautifully said, Michelle. Beautifully said. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this amazing author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest, Michelle Wilson, for coming on the show, making her official debut. Now, Michelle, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect, as well as buy a copy or copies of the books in your series? And are there any personal shout outs you want to give to people who have helped you on your journey?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X as it's known. Sorry, people who do like to call it X, but I'm still still focusing on it being Twitter. I am also on Threads, so you'll find me as M Wilson _ romance author on most of them. I've got a website coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that. So we'll obviously have everything, all my books on there, but for the time being, they're all on my link tree that's on my profiles, and which leads you to Amazon. All one of them are on there. And please don't be shy reaching out to me. If you want to message me, that's great, because I am, I'd like to think I'm very friendly and people can talk to me. But I'd like to shout out to the lovely guys and girls in the Instagram group that I'm in, called Indie Authors United. They are fantastic. They are so supportive, and they are there for you 100%.
And I think I want to say you're either the third or fourth author that I've had from the Indie Author Collective on the show. So I will attach the Instagram link to join the Indie Author group down below in the description of this video. And again, viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode here on the show. All of Michelle's socials, handles, and where to buy her books will also be attached down below in the description of this video. And again, thank you so much for joining us, people, for another amazing episode. A huge thank you to Michelle for coming on the show. And you'd like to see her back in a follow-up episode, possibly in an episode of the Writers Hub series. Like this video, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and happy